The Gila Valley smoldered under the 1885 New Mexico sun, its red mesas, blazing like embers against a sky of relentless blue. Mesquite Flats, stretching toward Dust Creek. A speck of a town where dreamers and outcasts clung to hope, like dust to weathered boots. Mara Ruiz, 22, stood alone by her hidden spring, its crystal water bubbling through crimson rocks, a secret her Mexican-Navajo father had died to protect. Her raven-black hair spilled loose beneath a frayed straw hat, her amber eyes fierce as the desert noon, a machete gleaming at her belt, its blade nicked from years of survival, shunned by her village for her mixed blood and fiery spirit. Mara had carved a solitary life here, her adobe hut a fortress of solitude, its mud walls etched with her father's dreams. This spring was her lifeline, her legacy, and she'd fight to keep it. That morning, as heat shimmered across the valley, Mara knelt by the spring, filling a clay jug, her cotton dress patched at the knees, its faded blue hem damp from the water's edge. A silver cross necklace, her mother's only gift, glinted at her throat, a reminder of a childhood lost to whispers of half-breed and troublemaker. A crumpled notice, slipped to her by a wary trader, weighed heavy in her apron. Piquetta demand from Cyrus Vance, Dust Creek's cattle baron, whose herds choked the Gila streams. He offered pennies for her land, threatening force if she refused. Mara's fingers tightened on the jug, her fury hotter than the sandstone beneath her. Vance's men, with their greased revolvers and cold eyes, had driven ranchers from their claims, leaving families scattered like tumbleweeds. Her spring, rumored to flow year-round, was his next conquest. But Mara had survived betrayal, hunger, and grief. She'd be damned if she'd surrender now. She rose, brushing dirt from her hands, her amber eyes scanning the horizon. Dust Creek, a half-mile off, stirred with life tents flapping, picks clinking in distant mines, the faint ring of a blacksmith's hammer. It was a town of misfits, where miners, widows, and wanderers built fragile dreams. But Mara kept her distance, her trust as scarce as rain. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. Water is life, Mara. Guard it with your heart. She adjusted, her machete, its weight a comfort, when hoofbeats rattled the canyon, sharp and deliberate. Snapping her gaze to the mesa's rim, she crouched behind a boulder, her breath steady, her blade ready. Years of solitude sharpening her instincts for trouble. A lone rider emerged, his roan horse lathered from a hard ride, its left foreleg limping. Levi Colton, 30, reined in, his lean frame tense under a faded gray duster, chestnut hair matted beneath a weathered Stetson. His deep brown eyes, shadowed by a past he couldn't outrun, scanned the spring with a quiet awe. A scar curved along his jaw, a memento from a bounty gone wrong, and his revolver hung low, its grip worn but untouched. Levi had been a bounty hunter, chasing men for gold across Kansas plains, but a betrayal his own, he'd admit, had driven him to Dust Creek, seeking a place to bury his guilt. Mara's spring, glinting like a desert jewel, felt like a chance at something new. Hold there, Mara called, stepping from the rocks, her machete catching the sun, her voice sharp as flint. Levi raised his hands, his brown eyes calm, no threat in his posture, his horse snorting softly. Didn't mean to startle you, ma'am, he said, his Kansas drawl low, steady. Name's Levi Colton. My horse needs water, and I'm short on luck. Mind sharing? Mara studied him, her amber eyes piercing. His canteen hung flat, his horse's limp was real, and his face weathered, with a scar and faint stubble held no deceit. Deception was common in the Gila, but his gaze carried something rare. Honesty, or close enough to make her pause. Water's free, she said, lowering her blade, her voice softening but wary. But men like you bring trouble. What's your story, Colton? He dismounted, his duster swaying, a faint smile breaking his guarded face. Just a wanderer, left bounty hunting behind. Too much blood, for too little reason. His eyes met hers, a spark of curiosity flickering. You're alone, guarding this spring. That's no small feat in a place like this. Mara's lips twitched, her amber eyes catching the sun. Grit's all I've got. My village called me half-breed, turned their backs when I was 16. Levi's smile faded, his voice gentle as a desert breeze. Folks fear what's different. I've seen it, done worse myself. Doesn't make 'em right. Their words hung, a fragile thread of connection weaving through the heat. Her crossed necklace glinting, his scarred hand resting near his revolver. A shout shattered the moment, sharp and urgent, echoing from the canyon's mouth. Rosa, young weaver from Dust Creek, her dark braid flying, her cotton skirt kicking up dust, ran toward them. Mara Vance's men are riding this way 4 of M, armed, after your spring. Mara's heart raced, her hand tightening on the machete, her amber eyes blazing. She'd faced threats before, but Vance's men were relentless, their greed a storm she couldn't outrun alone. Levi's brown eyes narrowed, his hand brushing his revolver, his stance shifting to shield her. You don't have to fight this alone, he said, his voice a vow, steady as the maces. Mara met his gaze, her heart stirring, torn between distrust and a flicker of hope. Could a stranger's oath hold against the desert's dangers? What shadows from Levi's past would rise to challenge Mara's fight? The Gila Valley blazed under the midday sun of 1885, its red mesas casting jagged shadows across Dust Creek's dusty streets, where the creak of wagons mingled with the restless lowing of cattle, driven by Cyrus Vance's sprawling empire. Mara, Ruiz stood resolute by her hidden spring, its crystal water gurgling through crimson rocks, a lifeline her Mexican-Navajo father had died to protect. Her raven black hair spilled loose beneath a frayed straw hat, her amber eyes fierce as the desert heat, her machete gleaming at her belt, its nicked blade a testament to her survival. The crumpled notice from Vance, Dust Creek's cattle baron, burned in her apron pocket a demand for her spring, backed by threats of force. Her cotton dress, patched at the knees, clung to her frame, its faded blue hem dusted with sand, while her silver cross necklace glinted, anchoring her to her father's vow. Water is life, Mara. Guard it with your heart. Mara's gaze swept the valley, where mesquite flats shimmered and Dust Creek's tents fluttered like fragile dreams. She'd kept her distance from the town, its miners and widows wary of her mixed blood and sharp tongue, but the spring was her sanctuary, her adobe hut, a fortress of mud and memory. Vance's men had crushed other claims, leaving families scattered like tumbleweeds, and her spring rumored to flow even in drought was his next prize. Her fury rose, hotter than the sandstone beneath her boots, but the hoofbeats rattling the canyon's mouth snapped her focus to the mesa's rim. For riders, moving fast, their dust cloud a warning of trouble she'd faced alone. Too long Levi Colton stood beside her. His roan horse now watered, its limp eased by the spring's edge. His faded gray duster swayed in the breeze, chestnut, hair matted under a weathered Stetson, his deep brown eyes shadowed by a bounty hunter's past. A scar curved along his jaw, a relic of a betrayal he wouldn't name, and his revolver hung low, its grip worn but steady. For riders, coming hard, he said, his Kansas drawl calm, his scarred hand hovering near his gun. Mara's amber eyes flicked to him, searching for deceit. You don't know me, Colton. Why risk your neck for my fight? Levi's lips twitched, a faint smile softening his guarded face. Seen too many lose what's theirs to men like Vance. I'm done standing by. Besides, you've got fire in you makes a man want to stand tall. His words, steady as the maces, kindled a spark in Mara's chest, a trust she hadn't felt since her father's death. The riders crested the mesa, their silhouettes sharp against the noon sky, horses snorting under heavy saddles. Silas Holt, Vance's enforcer, led them, a wiry man with a hawkish face and coal black eyes, his black vest pinned with a silver star that mocked true law. His 3 men dust-caked and grim-gripped rifles, their spurs glinting with menace. Mara Ruiz, Silas called, his voice slicing like a whip. Vance's offer stands one chance to sell that spring, or we take it by sundown tomorrow. Mara stepped forward, her machete flashing in the sun, her voice unyielding. This is my father's land, Holt. You'll get nothing but a fight. Silas sneered, his hand on his revolver. A half-breed alone. You're out of your depth, girl. Levi moved beside her, his revolver drawn, his brown eyes hard as flint. She ain't alone, he said, his stance a wall, the scar on his jaw catching the light. Silas's eyes narrowed, sizing Levi up, his sneer twisting. A drifter with a death wish once'll bury you both in the sand. Mara's heart pounded, but Levi's calm defiance steadied her, their shoulders brushing, a silent vow forming. Tell Vance to face me himself, she said, her amber eyes blazing like the desert sun. I don't barter with hired dogs. Silas laughed, cold and sharp, but his men shifted, their horses restless, as Dust Creek's townsfolk Crosa, the weaver, in a cotton skirt, and old man Diego, a miner with a limp watched from the town's edge, their faces tense with fear and defiance. Silas raised a hand, halting his men. Sundown tomorrow, Ruiz. Pack up, or we burn that hut to ash, and take the spring. He wheeled his horse, the riders retreating, their dust clouds swirling like a storm's promise. Mara's shoulders eased, but her grip on the machete stayed tight, her cross necklace glinting as she turned to Levi. "You didn't have to stand with me," she said, her voice low, searching his face. His brown eyes softened, a warmth breaking through his guarded mask. "Some fights choose you, Mara. Yours feels right." Their gazes locked, a spark of connection flaring, brighter than the noon sun. Her patched dress swaying, his duster catching the breeze. Rosa approached, her braid swinging, her eyes wide. "Mara, the town's scared, but Diego and others'll fight if you lead. Vance has taken too much." Mara hesitated, her amber eyes flicking to Dust Creek's tents, where misfits, like her, clung to fragile hopes. She'd built walls against trust, burned by her village's betrayal. But Levi's stand and Rosa's plea cracked those barriers. "We need a plan," she said, her voice firm, a leader's resolve rising. Levi nodded, his Stetson tilting. "I know tricks from my bounty days ways to hold ground. We can save your spring." As they walked toward her hut, the sun sinking behind the mesas, casting long shadows, Mara felt Levi's presence like a shield, his past a mystery she wanted to unravel. But Silas's threat loomed, and whispers from Dust Creek hinted at deeper schemes. What secrets from Levi's bounty hunting days would tip the scales of their stand? The Gila Valley shimmered under the fading sun of 1885, its red mesas softening to a molten amber, their shadows stretching long and cool across Dust Creek's weathered tents and sagging shacks. The air carried the tank of mesquite smoke and the distant lowing of cattle, a reminder of Cyrus Vance's iron grip on the New Mexico territory. Mara Ruiz stood outside her adobe hut, the spring's gentle gurgle, a lifeline pulsing through the crimson rocks behind her. Her raven-black hair was braided tightly beneath her frayed straw hat, her amber eyes burning with a resolve forged in years of solitude. Her cotton dress, patched at the knees, swayed in the evening breeze, its faded blue hem dusted with sand, while her silver cross necklace glinted like a star against her throat. The crumpled notice from Vance, demanding her spring by sundown tomorrow, weighed heavy in her apron pocket, its threat of fire a dark cloud over her heart. Silas Holt's cold laughter still echoed. But Mara wasn't alone anymore. Levi Colton's stand had kindled a fragile hope, a warmth she hadn't felt since her village shunned her for her Mexican-Navajo blood. Levi leaned against the hut mud wall, his faded gray duster open to the cooling air, chestnut hair catching the sunset's glow beneath his weathered Stetson. His deep brown eyes, shadowed by a bounty hunter's past, scanned the mesa's rim for any sign of Vance's men. His scarred hand resting near his revolver, its grip worn smooth by years of hard choices. "We've got one day to prepare," he said, his Kansas drawl steady, grounding her like the valley's ancient rocks. "Your spring's worth more than Vance's gold. We can hold it." Mara met his gaze, her amber eyes searching, a flicker of trust softening her guarded heart. "It's my father's dream water for a dry land. But I've fought alone too long. Why does this feel different with you here?" Levi's smile was faint but warm, his scar catching the fading light. "Some burdens get lighter when you share him, Mara. You're worth standing for." Rosa, the young weaver, gathered Dust Creek's townsfolk in the town's dusty square, their lanterns casting a golden glow across weathered faces. Old man Diego, a miner with a limp and eyes like chipped flint. Clara, a widow whose general store fed the town, her apron dusted with flour. And young Tomas, a stable boy with eager eyes and a slingshot tucked in his belt. Mara stepped forward, her machete sheathed but gleaming, her voice rising clear above the creek's murmur. "Vance wants my spring, but it's Dust Creek. He's after our homes, our hopes. If we stand together, we can stop him." Diego nodded, his calloused hands gripping a shovel. "Vance took my claim last year, left me nothing. I'm with you, Mara." Clara's voice was firm. "I've got supplies, food, bandages, whatever you need." Tomas grinned, bouncing on his heels. "I can ride for help, scout the trails." Mara's chest swelled, her years of isolation cracking under their unexpected loyalty. But doubt lingered. Could a town of misfits outmatch Vance's hired guns? Levi stepped beside her, his Stetson tilted, his brown eyes steady as he addressed the crowd. "I've faced worse odds hunting bounties. We'll use the canyon's narrows funnel Vance's men in, slow him down with barricades." His plan sparked murmurs of hope, the townsfolk's lanterns bobbing like fireflies. Mara felt his presence like a fire in the desert chill, warming her guarded heart, their shoulders brushing as they shared a glance. "We'll build by dawn," she said, her voice firm, her leader's resolve rising like the valley's maces. The townsfolk scattered, fetching crates, barrels, and old wagon wheels, their lanterns weaving through the dark as Dust Creek came alive with purpose. Mara and Levi worked side by side, stacking rocks and logs by the spring, their hands brushing in the flickering light. A silent vow forming in the quiet moments between their labor. As they paused to catch their breath, Mara set her machete on a crate, her amber eyes catching Levis in the lantern glow. "What's chasing you, Levi?" she asked, her voice soft but piercing. "You didn't just stumble into Dust Creek." He hesitated, his brown eyes clouding, the scar on his jaw stark in the light. "Chased a man in Kansas, friend. Once, turned him in for a bounty, got him killed. Been running from that guilt ever since." His voice was raw, heavy with a pain Mara recognized her own exile, her village's rejection, a mirror to his shame. She touched his hand, her fingers grazing his scarred knuckles, her cross necklace glinting. "You're not that man anymore," she said, her voice steady. "You're here, fighting for me, for this town." Levi's fingers curled around hers, his smile tentative but warm. Their bond, a spark in the desert night. A shout shattered the quiet Tomas, sprinting from the canyon's mouth, his face pale under the starlight. "Mara, Levi," spotted a rider on the mesa, watching us. Not Silas, but one of Vance's men carrying a torch. Mara's amber eyes snapped to the horizon, where a lone flame flickered, vanishing into the dark. Her machete gleamed as she stood, Levi's revolver already in hand, his brown eyes sharp. Vance's spies were circling, their torches a promise of fire, and Dust Creek's lanterns glowed like a fragile defiance against the coming storm. Mara felt Levi's strength beside her, their shared glance a vow to hold the spring, but whispers from the town hinted at a traitor among them, someone feeding Vance their plans. Who among Dust Creek's own would betray Mara's fight for the spring? The Gila Valley lay shrouded in the starlit chill of 1885, its red mesas standing like silent sentinels, their edges softened by moonlight over Dust Creek's flickering lanterns. Mara Ruiz worked tirelessly by her hidden spring, its crystal gurgle a lifeline weaving through crimson rocks. Her raven-black hair braided tightly beneath her frayed straw hat, amber eyes blazing with defiance. Her cotton dress, patched at the knees, clung to her frame, its faded blue hem dusted with sand, while her silver cross necklace glinted like a talisman against her throat. The crumpled notice from Cyrus Vance, Dust Creek's cattle baron, burnt in her apron pocket, its ultimatum: surrender her spring by sundown, or face fire igniting a fury hotter than the desert day. Silas Holt's cold laughter lingered, but Mara's resolve was aflame, fueled by the town's unexpected loyalty and Levi Colton's steady presence. A man who'd chosen her fight as his own. Levi crouched beside her, his faded gray duster, coated with dust, chestnut hair damp under his weathered Stetson, his deep brown eyes scanning the mesa's rim for torchlight. His scarred hand gripped a shovel, piling rocks for barricades, his revolver close, its worn grip, a relic of bounty hunting days he'd left behind. "Barricades are holding," he said, his Kansas drawl a steady anchor in the night. "Vance's men'll hit the Narrows hard, but we'll choke him out." Mara met his gaze, her amber eyes softening, a spark of trust flaring like a star in the desert dark. "You're risking your life for my spring, Levi. Why does it feel like you're fighting for more?" His smile was warm, his scar catching the moonlight. "You're building a home, Mara. Makes a man want to believe in something worth keeping." Dust Creek's townsfolk worked feverishly around them, their lanterns casting golden pools across the canyon's mouth. Old man Diego, his limp pronounced, piling rocks with weathered hands. Clara the widow, hauling blankets and burlap sacks for the wounded. Young Tomas, his slingshot tucked away, tying ropes to secure crates. Rosa, her braid swinging, whispered to Mara, "The town's scared, but they trust you." Even Clara's husband, Mateo, "He's here, but he's been dodging everyone's eyes." Mara's heart tightened, her amber eyes flicking to Mateo, a cattle hand whose gaze darted nervously to the mesa. Was he the traitor feeding Vance their plans? She pushed the doubt down, focusing on the barricades, her machete gleaming at her belt, its nicked blade ready for the fight she'd always faced alone. As midnight loomed, Levi pulled Mara aside, the spring's murmur soft behind them, its water reflecting starlight like a promise. His brown eyes were serious, clouded with a past he couldn't outrun. "There's something you need to know," he said, his voice low, raw with guilt. "In Kansas, I hunted a friend for a bounty, thought it'd clear my debts. Turned him in, got him killed. Vance might know, Use it to turn the town against us. Mara's chest ached. Her own exile shunned for her Mexican-Navajo, blood echoing his shame. She touched his scarred hand, her fingers tracing the rough edges, her cross necklace glinting. That's not who you are now, Levi, she said, her voice steady as the maces. You're here, fighting for me, for Dust Creek. That's what matters. His fingers curled around hers, their bond afire against the night's chill, a vow sealed in the quiet of their shared pain. A rifle shot cracked the silence, sharp and sudden, echoing from the mesa's rim. Tomas shouted, scrambling from the barricades, his face pale under the starlight. They're here, Vance's men, 6 of them, with torches. Mara's amber eyes snapped to the horizon, where flames danced like vultures circling. 6 riders charging down the canyon. Silas Holt led them, his hawkish face twisted, his silver star glinting on his black vest, his cold black eyes cold as death. Light it up, he roared, one rider hurling a torch toward the barricades, its flames licking the dry crates. Levi fired his revolver, the shot sparking off a rock, forcing the riders to scatter. Mara grabbed her machete, her voice ringing out like a bell. Hold the line. The townsfolk rallied Diego, swinging his shovel, Clara tossing sand to smother the flames, Rosa dragging a burning crate away. But a second torch landed, igniting a pile of burlap with a hungry crackle, the fire casting eerie shadows on the canyon walls. Levi pulled Mara behind a boulder, his brown eyes fierce, his revolver steady. They're testing us won't charge till the fire weakens the barricades. Mara's heart pounded, her machete gleaming as she scanned the townsfolk. Mateo stood frozen, his eyes darting to the mesa, his hands empty, his face pale with more than fear. Her stomach sank, his silence screamed betrayal. Mateo, not with us, she whispered, her voice urgent, her cross necklace catching the firelight. Levi's jaw tightened, his scar stark. We'll handle him later. Focus on the spring. The flames roared higher, Dust Creek's lanterns flickering like a fading hope. But Mara and Levi stood shoulder to shoulder, their shared glance, a promise to hold the line, even as a traitor's shadow loomed within their ranks, whose betrayal would strike at the heart of Mara and Levi's fight. The Gila Valley quivered under the starlit chill of 1885, its red mesas towering like shadowed guardians, their crags carved in moonlight over Dust Creek's faltering lanterns. Mara Ruiz stood resolute by her hidden spring, its crystal gurgle, a defiant heartbeat against the roar of burning barricades. Her raven black hair braided tightly beneath her frayed straw hat, amber eyes blazing with a fury that outshone the flames. Her cotton dress, patched and singed at the hem, clung to her sweat-dampened frame, her silver-crossed necklace glinting like a talisman of hope amidst the chaos. Cyrus Vance's men, led by Silas Holt, had struck at midnight, their torches igniting the canyon's defenses, a fiery assault to claim her spring the lifeline. Her Mexican-Navajo father died protecting. The shadow of betrayal loomed larger. Mateo's nervous glances and empty hands a wound deeper than any flame, threatening the fragile unity of Dust Creek's misfits. Levi Colton crouched beside her, his faded gray duster smudged with soot, chestnut, hair slick with sweat under his weathered Stetson, his deep brown eyes scanning the mesa's rim where torchlight danced like vultures circling prey. His scarred hand gripped his revolver, its worn grip steady, despite the fire's glow. His Kansas drawl cutting through the crackle of burning crates. They're holding back, waiting for the fire to break us. We've got time to regroup. Hit M at dawn. Mara met his gaze, her amber eyes catching the moonlight, a spark of trust anchoring her heart. Mateo's betrayed us, Levi Vance's spy in our ranks. How do we fight when we're divided? Levi's jaw tightened, his scar stark in the firelight. We save the spring first, then deal with Mateo. You're not alone, Mara, not anymore. The townsfolk rallied around the spring, their lanterns casting golden defiance against the encroaching flames. Old man Diego, his limp forgotten, hauled buckets of spring water, his weathered face set with grit. Clara, her apron torn, passed out wet cloths to smother the fire, her eyes fierce with purpose. Tomas, his slingshot swapped for a shovel, piled dirt on smoldering crates, his young voice shouting encouragement. Rosa, her braid singed, tugged Mara's arm, her voice urgent. The east barricades failing. Mara, we're holding, but we need more hands. Mara's machete gleamed as she sprinted to the crumbling line, Levi at her side, his revolver firing warning shots that echoed off the canyon walls, scattering Silas's men into the shadows. Stay low, Mara shouted, her voice a beacon, her cross necklace swinging as she tossed sand on the flames, her hands stinging from the heat, her resolve unbreakable. In a fleeting lull, Mara pulled Levi behind a boulder. The spring's cool, mist a brief reprieve, its water reflecting starlight like a promise of endurance. Her amber eyes searched his, her voice low, trembling with urgency. If Mateo's feeding Vance our plans, we're fighting blind. Why would he turn on his own people? Levi's brown eyes clouded, his voice raw with old wounds. Vance buys loyalty with coin or fear. In my bounty days, I saw men like Mateo scared, broke, desperate. I was one, once, selling out a friend for gold. Mara's chest ached, her exile shunned for her mixed blood, mirroring his shame. Her father's voice echoing, water is life, Mara, but trust is its keeper. She touched his scarred hand, her fingers tracing the rough edges, her cross necklace glinting in the firelight. You're my shield, Levi, not that man anymore. We'll face this together. His fingers tightened around hers, their bond a flame brighter than the burning barricades. A vow sealed in the desert's heart. A cry pierced the night. Clara, her face pale, pointing to the east barricade where Mateo stood, his lantern raised, high, signaling to the mesa with deliberate swings. He's marking us, she shouted, her voice cracking with betrayal. Mara's heart sank, her machete flashing as she sprinted toward him. Levi close behind, his revolver drawn. Mateo, she called, her voice sharp with pain and fury. He froze, the lantern slipping from his hands, its glass shattering on the rocks, casting sparks like fallen stars. I had no choice, he stammered, his eyes wide, hands trembling. Vance threatened my kid said he'd burn our home. Mara's amber eyes burned, torn between rage and pity, her cross necklace glinting as she stepped closer. You chose him over us. Mateo, you broke Dust Creek. Levi's voice was steady, his revolver unwavering. You've got one chance. Mateo, stand with us now or run. Mateo's shoulders slumped, his face crumpling as he grabbed a bucket, dousing the flames. His choice, a fragile step toward redemption. Silas's voice roared from the mesa, his silver star glinting like a false dawn, his cold black eyes locking on Mara's with a smirk that promised ruin. Burn him out, he bellowed, another torch arcing through the night, landing perilously close to the spring, its flames licking the rocks, threatening the heart of her father's legacy. Mara and Levi dove to smother it, their hands brushing in the chaos, their shared glance a vow to hold the line. The townsfolk fought on Diego's shovel clanging, Rosa's shouts rallying, Clara's cloths choking the fire butt. The flames spread, their heat a relentless foe. Whispers from Dust Creek had reached Mara's ears. Vance wasn't just after her spring. He aimed to seize the town's water rights, controlling the Gila Valley's lifeblood. Mateo's signal had lit the way for his next move, and a darker plan loomed, one that could shatter their fragile stand. What was Vance's hidden scheme? And how would Mateo's choice reshape their fight? The Gila Valley stirred under the pre-dawn hush of 1885. Its red mesas catching the first light, like embers rekindled. Their crags softened by a lavender glow over Dust Creek's smoldering barricades. Mara Ruiz stood resolute by her hidden spring, its crystal gurgle a stubborn heartbeat against the charred remains of crates and burlap. Her raven-black hair loose beneath her frayed straw hat, amber eyes blazing with a defiance that outshone the fading stars. Her cotton dress, singed at the hem and patched at the knees, clung to her sweat-dampened frame, her silver cross necklace glinting like a talisman of hope amidst the night's scars. Cyrus Vance's midnight assault, led by Silas Holt, had scorched their defenses, but the spring still flowed, a testament to her Mexican-Navajo father's legacy and Dust Creek's fragile stand. Mateo's betrayal signaling Vance's men with a raised lantern cut deeper than any flame. Yet his choice to stay and fight sparked a flicker of redemption, a fragile thread in the town's woven courage. Mara's heart, once walled by years of exile, now burned with purpose, fueled by Levi Colton's unwavering loyalty and the townsfolk's rising spirit. Levi stood beside her, his faded gray duster torn at the shoulder, chestnut hair slick with sweat under his weathered Stetson, his deep brown eyes scanning the mesa's rim where the last torchlight had vanished. His scarred hand gripped his revolver, its worn grip steady, despite the chaos. His Kansas drawl, a calm anchor in the dawn's chill. We held him off, Mara, but Vance ain't done. Word from town says he's after more than your spring heat, buying up water rights to choke the Gila Valley dry. Mara's amber eyes narrowed, her machete gleaming at her belt, its nicked blade a silent vow. He wants Dust Creek's lifeblood. Every stream, every well. Mateo's signal gave him our plan. What's his next move? Livy's jaw tightened, his scar stark in the early light, his voice low with resolve. We take the fight to him. Hit his camp tonight, steal those papers before he claims the valley. The townsfolk gathered around the spring, their faces etched with weariness, but lit with defiance. Old man Diego, his limp pronounced, leaned on his shovel, his flinty eyes fierce with grit. Clara, her apron scorched, clutched a sack of bandages, her hands steady despite the night's toll. Tomas, his young face smudged with soot, swapped his slingshot for a rope, tying knots with eager hands. Rosa, her braid frayed, her cotton skirt torn, stood firm, her voice a spark. Mateo's with us now, Mara, but folks don't trust him. He says Vance has a contract, legal papers from Santa Fe to seize all water rights. Mara's heart sank, her cross necklace glinting as she turned to Mateo, who stood apart, his eyes downcast, his hands wringing a tattered cloth. Speak, Mateo, she said, her voice sharp but steady, echoing her father's lessons of trust and accountability. What's Vance planning? Mateo's voice trembled, his face pale. He's got a lawyer, papers to claim the Gila streams, paid me to signal, threatened my kids' lives. I'm sorry, Marai was weak. Mara's amber eyes burned, torn between fury and pity. Her father's words ringing clear. Water is life, but trust is its keeper. She stepped closer, her machete still, her voice a blade of its own. You chose us now, Mateo. Prove it. With your hands, not words. Levi nodded, his brown eyes steady, his revolver holstered but ready. We ride to Vance's camp tonight, deal those papers, break his claim before he buries Dust Creek. The townsfolk murmured, their lanterns flickering like stars reborn, their courage a fragile flame against Vance's greed. Mara felt Levi's presence like a shield, his strength a fire in her heart, their shared glance a vow to protect the valley's future. Diego raised his shovel, his voice gruff. Hyman Vance took my claim once, not again. Clara's eyes gleamed. I'll pack food, keep the spring guarded. Tomas grinned. I'll scout the trails. Levi knelt by the spring, sketching a map in the dirt with a stick, his scarred hand steady, marking Vance's camp by the Gila River's bend, its cottonwoods hiding tents and armed guards. It's fortified, but I know trails from my bounty. Day's narrow paths Silas won't watch. Mara knelt beside him, her amber eyes tracing his lines, their shoulders brushing, a spark of connection flaring in the dawn's glow. You've carried your guilt alone too long, she said, her voice soft, her cross necklace catching the light. What made you stop running, Levi? His brown eyes met hers, raw with truth, his scar softening in the moment. You, Mara, your fire, your fight, it's the home I've been chasing without knowing it. I'd face 100 Vances for you. Her hand found his, their fingers intertwining, their bond a beacon against the valley's shadows. A promise to face the fight as one. A shout shattered the quiet. Tomas, perched on a rock, pointing to the mesa's rim, riders, Silas and more men, circling back, no torches. Mara's heart raced, her machete flashing as she stood, Levi's revolver already drawn, his brown eyes sharp as flint. The townsfolk scrambled, dousing lanterns, gripping shovels and rifles. But Silas's men didn't charge, they rode slowly, their silhouettes menacing in the dawn light, coursers snorting in the chill. Silas's voice carried, cold and mocking, his silver star glinting like a false dawn. Last chance. Ruiz. Hand over the spring, or Dust Creek burns by noon. Mara's amber eyes blazed, her voice ringing like a bell across the canyon. You'll get nothing but dust, Holt. Levi's hand brushed hers, a silent vow, his duster swaying as he stood firm. Rosa whispered, her voice urgent. They're stalling. Mara Vance is coming himself. With those papers, maybe more men. Mara's stomach knotted, the weight of Vance's scheme control of the valley's water rights, crushing her resolve. Mateo's betrayal, a wound still raw. She turned to Levi, her voice fierce. We can't wait for tonight. We hit Vance's camp now, before he brings those papers to Dust Creek. Levi's smile was fierce, his scar catching the dawn's glow. Risky as hell, but I'm with you, Mara. Let's take the fight to him. The townsfolk nodded, their faces set, their lanterns glowing like a defiant constellation. But whispers from Dust Creek hinted at Vance's true power. Force beyond. Silas's guns, tied to a deal that could choke the valley's heart and break their stand forever. What deal did Vance strike? And could Mara and Levi steal the papers in time? The Gila Valley bloomed under the dawn's golden embrace in 1885. Its red mesas rising like ancient sentinels, their crags bathed in a soft lavender glow over Dust Creek's battered barricades, where the scent of charred wood mingled with the hope of a new day. Mara Ruiz stood resolute by her hidden spring, its crystal gurgle a triumphant anthem against the scars of the night's battle, her raven-black hair flowing loose beneath her frayed straw hat, amber eyes radiant with a hope forged in fire. Her cotton dress, singed at the hem and patched at the knees, swayed in the morning breeze, her silver cross necklace glinting like a beacon of victory, a testament to a Mexican-Navajo father's legacy. Cyrus Vance's midnight assault, led by Silas Holt, had scorched their defenses, and Mateo's betrayal signaling with a lantern had nearly broken their stand, but Dust Creek's misfits had held the spring, their courage a flame that outshone the valley's darkest hour. Mara's heart, once caged by years of exile for her mixed blood, now soared, lifted by Levi Colton's unyielding loyalty and a love that had blossomed amidst dust, danger, and defiance. Levi stood beside her, his faded gray duster torn but proud, chestnut hair catching the dawn's light under his weathered Stetson, his deep brown eyes warm with a peace he'd never known in his bounty-hunting days. His scarred hand rested on his holstered revolver, its worn grip a relic of a past he'd shed for her, his Kansas drawl soft as the morning air. "We held the spring, Mara," he said, his voice steady as the mesas. "Vance's men are scattered, but those papers his water rights contract are still out there, ready to choke the valley." Mara's amber eyes met his, her voice firm, echoing her father's vow. "Water is life, but trust is its keeper." "We ride now, Levi," she said, her machete gleaming at her belt. "We steal those papers, break his hold forever." Levi's smile was fierce, his scar softened by the light. "With you, Mara, I'd ride through fire itself." The townsfolk gathered around the spring, their faces etched with weariness but alight with defiance. Old man Diego, his shovel slung over his shoulder, his flinty eyes gleaming with grit. Clara, her scorched apron tied tight, her hands steady with bandages and resolve. Tomas, his young face smudged with soot, his slingshot tucked away, his pride bright as the dawn. Rosa, her braid loose, her cotton skirt torn, her voice a spark of hope. Mateo stood among them, his head bowed, his hands calloused from dousing flames, his redemption a fragile thread woven into their unity. "I'll ride with you," he said, his voice steady, eyes meeting Mara's. "Vance's camp is by the Gila's Benguards, but no Silas. I know the way." Mara nodded, her amber eyes softening, her cross necklace glinting. "You've earned a chance, Mateo. Let's end this." Under the dawn's veil, Mara, Levi, and Mateo rode out, their horses' hooves muffled on the sandy trails Levi knew from his bounty-hunting days. The Gila River gleaming like molten silver in the early light, the camp lay hidden among cottonwoods, its tents flapping, a corral of restless horses, and a guarded wagon where the papers lay. Levi signaled a halt behind a mesquite thicket, his brown eyes sharp, his scarred hand steady. "Two guards. Light, watch Vance thinks we're broken. We move quiet, grab the papers, slip out." Mara's machete gleamed, her voice a whisper, her cross necklace catching the dawn. "If we fail, Dust Creek's water is his, and the valley dies." Levi's hand brushed hers, a vow in his touch, his smile warm. "We won't fail, Mara, not together." They crept through the mesquite, shadows among shadows, Mateo's nervous steps steadying under Mara's amber gaze. At the wagon, its canvas flapping in the breeze, Levi picked the lock on a wooden chest with a bounty hunter's deftness, revealing a leather folder stamped with Santa Fe's seal. Vance's contract, signed by a corrupt judge, claiming the Gila streams for his empire. Mara's heart raced, her fingers trembling as she tucked the papers into her dress, the weight of the valley's future in her hands. But a guard's shout split the dawn, a rifle shot grazing Levi's arm, blood staining his duster. Gavi hissed, firing back, his revolver's crack scattering the guards. Mara and Mateo bolted their horses thundering through the cottonwoods, Levi covering their escape, his brown eyes fierce despite the pain, his scarred hands steady. Back at Dust Creek, the townsfolk cheered as Mara burned the papers in the springs, clearing the ashes, scattering like freed dreams across the crimson rocks. Vance's men, without their contract, retreated into the valley's dust, Silas's silver star fading like a false star. Mara bandaged Levi's arm by the spring, her amber eyes soft, her touch gentle as she tied the cloth. "You bled for me," she whispered, her cross necklace brushing his hand. Levi's smile was warm, his voice low, raw with truth. "I'd bleed again, Mara. You're my home, my reason to stay still." She leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss, soft as dawn, deep as the Gila's flow, sealing a love born in fire and defiance. The townsfolk clapped, Diego's gruff laugh echoing, Rosa's eyes misty, Tom's whooping, Mateo's head bowed in quiet gratitude. Weeks later, Mara and Levi stood before Dust Creek's preacher in a simple wooden church, her blue calico dress, new and vibrant, his string tie crooked but proud, the spring bubbling behind them as a witness to their vows. Clara, Diego, Tomas, and Mateo stood as family, their smiles a tapestry of shared struggle. They built a home by the spring, its adobe walls rising like a promise. Their love a cornerstone for Dust Creek's future town, now thriving, its streams free, its misfits united. In the 1880s, water disputes defined the American West, as barons like Vance used legal loopholes and brute force to seize resources, displacing settlers and native communities alike. Mara's stand, rooted in her mixed heritage and courage, proved that unity and love could reclaim what greed sought to steal, a lesson etched in the Gila Valley's red earth. Rate this story out of 10 below your thoughts, shape our tales of heart and hope. Like, subscribe, and join our next adventure. Insert playlist link. What legacy would Mara and Levi's love etch in the valley's enduring heart?